Hello, everyone. This is Callie Beard of KarmicTools.com, and tonight is our monthly Power Circle call where we pick something to focus on, and tonight it's Saturn in Aries. 25 to 28, this is just the introduction because it's going to dip back into Pisces. Okay, welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could be with me live. This is an exciting activation in many ways. Any planet that hits Aries kicks off a whole new cycle, and Saturn is our reality and purpose and very tied to our social contracts and agreements and things that we agree to out here in the world between each other. So when it moves into a new sign, we have a new assignment, for real. And you all know me, I'm all big about the cycles. So I'm going to rattle off some years first for you to kind of jot down, and then later at your altars or wherever you do your meditation practice, you try to tap into these years because this is the energy or the cycle that's circling back. And then we're going to talk about the one we're activating going forward. We're going to go deep into Saturn and what it's good for, because that's the whole point of you knowing where it is so you can co-create. I've got a few activations that I will quickly breeze over because 2025 only has one. 2026 has 3 with Saturn, and 27 is 1, 28 is 1. This is all with Saturn in Aries, right? So we only really need to discuss the one for this year, but it's part of a pattern, and it's part of some bigger things that are coming, so we will discuss. And then we have some divinations. So I am very grateful for the Power Circle and the extended circle that joins us along the way. This time, tonight specifically, we want to kind of tap into setting intentions for right now, May to September 1st. Grounding this initial step into Aries that Saturn's doing, because as of September 1st, it's going to dip back into Pisces. And it doesn't really enter Aries fully until February 13th of 2026. So for this year, for the rest of this year, it's on this cusp. It's already been in a process with Pisces, but its retrograde this year is going to go backwards at 1 degree Aries and forward at 25 degrees Pisces. So we're still on the cusp. And so we are still completing things and preparing to initiate things. The initiation is going to be in steps and stages and waves. So we want to prepare ourselves to respond accordingly, really. This cycle, 25 to 28, is the years that it's in Aries. So the first thing I looked at was what are the other years that Saturn moved through Aries so that we can have a frame of reference. So we go back to 96 to 99. That's the last time. Before that, 67 to 69. Before that, 1937 to 1940, which is another bigger Uranus cycle that's back. I feel like there's a lot of layers, y'all, of evolution that goes on every time Saturn does anything, but definitely when it hits Aries. 1908 to 1911, and I went all the way back to 1878 to 81 because that ties into the Pluto cycle and all kinds of other things that are back from the late 1800s. So this movement through Aries, we can look at all those periods in time, basically 30s, 60s, 90s, here we are going to the late 20s, is the time when we go into Saturn as defining our terms, holding our structure, being responsible for our own choices and actions. Aries puts it right back on you. And the thing about Saturn and Aries in particular is if you are totally independent, completely responsible and self-sustained, self-contained, then the authorities don't even know you exist. Because all the authorities in our world were created for other things, for other purposes. The example I'm thinking of is my teenage son when he started driving. We were trying to explain to him that the tickets and the different things that generate money for the country are based on us making mistakes. And if we don't make those mistakes, then they can't make any money off of us. And then we had to tell them, if you make mistakes, we're the ones that got to pay for it. So we're all in this together, okay? So there is this, like I said, social agreement level that Saturn rules and that Saturn is a part of. Jupiter and Saturn work together. Jupiter comes in and shows us the potentials, but Saturn's like, now make it real, give it a foundation, give it a structure, make it serve something beyond just you. That's another big component there. Now, what we're doing now is activating something a little bigger for everyone that has any Aries, Libra, or Cancer, Capricorn, especially if you have Saturn in any of those signs. Then it's a Saturn return. If you have Saturn in Aries, this is a very big deal for you personally. But the reverberations. So I'm going to rock through these years because these were the years of this past 30-year cycle, back to 96 to 99 when it was in Aries. Then in 03 to 05, it went to Cancer. And then 09 to 2012, it went to Libra. And 2017 to 2020, just around the corner, it went through Capricorn. So anyone with Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn planets were affected directly by Saturn's influence during those years. We are kicking off the new cycle going forward, and I can give you these years, but they're pretty much every 7 years. So 25 to 32 to 39 to 47. So we're going to go forward with the same little pivot points in the cardinal signs. And we talk about that on a micro level for our annual season. We say winter, spring, summer, fall is ruled by Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, which has a lot to do with home and work and self versus other. So now put Saturn on that, okay? And we talk about how it's where we do our most changes and actions and choices and movement is at that turn of the wheel. So I've tried to condition you all to annually checking in with your processing the month before and your anchoring or releasing the month after. So what you want to think about is we've just come through a Saturn in Pisces processing time, and it's taking us into an Aries activate change time that will lead to a Taurus what we ground and manifest time, okay? And so it's all connected. You all have heard me say in other classes, everything's a response to the last thing, preparation for the next thing. And this is very much what I want you to feel into as it makes its little travels over the next 2.5 years, moving things around in your world. So we do look at Saturn for a couple of specific things. Like I was saying, it rules tasks, forms, structure, definition. Like I said, we're going to redefine our terms. What does commitment mean to you? How do you do those things when you agree to terms? We're going to redefine our terms. That's a big deal on the heels of a Venus retrograde because our values and priorities have just shifted. On the heels of a Mercury retrograde where our thinking has just shifted. And prior to that, and we're still swimming through the end of the Mars retrograde waters, which shifted who you are and what you want on a deep, deep level. So defining your terms anew is going to be crucial to success and really critical to moving to your own next level. Authority, inner authority in particular, because this is in Aries, so it's all about you. You know Saturn does rule time and responsibility, choices and decisions, society, government, institutions. They're all being reborn too, honey. It's a new day out there as well. But my work and my tools and the things that I focus on in here are to support you, the individual. In Kelly's world, I think if the individuals get it together, the globe will be okay. So I want you to apply these Saturn things and really run through these Saturn filters, I should say, against your own life and the structure that you've been in, the forms you've manifested, like Saturn in Aries in my article. I called it rooting the flame. You know, we are grounding this fire. That's the beauty of these two together. Mars rules Aries. Mars is our actions and choices too, but it's our sacred masculine. It's how we get things done, how we move in the world. And it wants all that fiery go, go, go. But Saturn's like, hold up. If we take it step by step and build it brick by brick, it'll last longer. And so that's where we want the combo to work in our favor and not go to the extreme, which is blowing things up and destroying, being destructive about it, you know. The shadow side of Saturn, and where we're going to have to work on it real deep with Aries on the self, is lack and limitation. Saturn makes us feel our limits and shows us our confines and the little containers that we build. The thing about it is we outgrow them containers every 7 years. So if you don't change up and you stay in that container a little too long, then you start bumping against the walls and it's like, let me out of here. You start being uncomfortable and cramped, right? Depression and fear, claustrophobia, paralysis, postponement. This is where we postpone choices and decisions. Not a good idea. Loneliness, hardship, resistance, inertia, and abuse of power, which we're seeing in the world. So think about the shadow side and how, like, some people are naturally kind of inclined to depression and some people are seriously just not. They don't go that route. That is where you need to gauge your own zone of all of these things. How and when do you postpone decisions? When do you feel lonely and lost and doubtful? This is where our self-doubts come up. right? So now it's in Aries. All the self-doubts are at the top of the list. And the way through it, though, is action. If we can push through the fears and make good choices, then we conquer those fears. It's like we can't stop having fear. You just have to move through it and act anyway. And then how do you do that? And how is that being defined anew at your new age and stage? Because that's another thing about Saturn. It rules our maturity. That goes every 7 years as well. So if our cells are sloughing off and our consciousness is shifting and our reality and what we perceive as our reality is shifting, it's really good to do that consciously. How you know you're in a Saturn initiation is a lot of times we hit rock bottom or we have major life decisions. Again, look at your 7-year pivot point. It's definitely where we have obstacles, where we have to push a little harder. Like I say, when we're going to a new level, and maybe I'm calling it in, but this is my experience, I say we get tested. You know, as soon as you claim you want to go to a new level, the universe is like, okay, how bad do you want it? You really want to go to the next level? Because this is what you're going to have to go through to get to that next level. And so we get tested. It's deep, but it's still building character, building strength, you know, building clarity. You know, like maybe I don't want that because I'm not willing to pay that price. That's Saturn. What are you willing to pay for to get this done? You know, perceived obstacles, suddenly alone. That's definitely Saturn. So, you know, all of a sudden, the reality has shifted and the support system you thought you had is no longer as stable. That's another thing we check in with. What's stable at this time and what's not? What's got cracks in the foundation? Okay, we don't bulldoze the house. We go do tuck pointing. We fix it, right? We can do that with the structures of our lives. Hesitating to act, that's a problem, especially with Aries. We want to be instinctive. We got to be clean and clear to follow those instincts, but this is the time to really ground that power. Delaying rewards, postponing choices, repeating a lesson. That's a big one. You know you're in a Saturn initiation then. And what I say is if you do catch yourself repeating a lesson, then I believe if you catch it within a year, you have passed the test. It may just be a C+, but you passed. And if 2, 3, 4, 5 years go by and you look back at that year and you say, I repeated a lesson there and you didn't catch it, then you got to wait for the new cycles to kick off and the new energy to come in to get on to that next level. But now you know, Saturn's all about the learning. Jupiter and Saturn bring lessons, right? They teach in different ways. Jupiter teaches by expanding things. Saturn teaches by consolidating things. One teaches through potential and possibility, and Saturn goes through the literal and what we manifest and what we build. Now, to navigate Saturn terrain, you need your self-confidence, which again is going to be rebirthed with this Aries energy as well. You have to know your purpose or goal, and that also is very supported by moving through Aries. Be flexible and responsive. Again, if you're connected and clean and clear and food and pharmaceuticals aren't blocking your 6 senses, you can be flexible and responsive. Needing your physical endurance. Again, we're very much in the body, y'all, and we've gotten a lot of divinations and different things going on there. And mental resilience, because things aren't always going to be what they look like. We have to know what they feel like. We have to be present in our bodies and in the literal experience, not in the concept of the experience, right? Not in the idea, but in the literal experience. You definitely need your strength and fortitude. So whatever you have to do to build that, that's what you want to go into right now. And definitely for this introduction, like I said, May to September, this is the time to identify these things. And this is when these things are going to come up. Being challenged to deepen your dedication. And I say maintain your sense of humor, honey. Do some comedy because it's the only way through the dark. Play some music. This is our way through those dark times, let's say. Now, we have, oh my goodness, there's so many things to talk about here. What I did do is I ran the chart for May 24th, which is the day Saturn enters Aries, and I ran it for February 13th, 2026. So what I'll probably do is talk about that February chart next year, and we cover the Saturn for 2026, right? But I will give you a heads up that come February, everything is packed in the 6th house. So we're still in this zone of focus on your body and your physical systems and what you can handle and what you cannot handle, and reinforce your boundaries around it so that you can stay healthy and free At that time, it's February. There's a lot of Aquarius energy kicking off, and along with Pisces is still going to be really strong, and that's what's in that sixth house. So we have to do the work ahead of time, which is right now. May 24th chart has it all in the second and third house, which is your values and priorities, along with your thinking and ideas and concepts and how you process what's coming up and through you. So this is where the new beginning kicks off. Technically in the second house is Saturn, and Neptune is only a degree apart. So the reality and the dream are right there rebirthing together in a bigger way, in a social collective way. But you're a piece of that, especially if you have strong Aries. This is your time to shine, as it were. This is your time to rebirth the reality in a way you haven't had access to since the 90s, which is one way to look at it. But that is still the new dream. The new reality is rooted in your value system. What do you care about? This is of time, energy, and money. And how is that rebirthing in a new way that should serve you, the individual Aries, a little bit more directly? Again, your personal boundaries are what's coming up because the social collective is crumbling. There is death before rebirth out there. And right now we have to do what we have to do to protect ourselves from the crumble. And choosing this new path, right? We have the new North Node in Pisces. This is a path that is rooted in spirit, and being connected to your spirit team, which is the last 3 years of Saturn in Pisces, has made us ground and anchor that relationship in a very literal way. Your spirit team becomes all important when the humans are unavailable for consultation, okay? You can rely on your spirit team. Everybody else is going through the same energy shifts as you are, so it's hard to rely on other humans right now. So thinking about that new path, but the path that honors your soul, the path that honors your creative spark, the path that honors your drop in the ocean, your individual contribution to this big wave of life down here, right? What did you come to contribute, and how is that being rebirthed? Now, the whole chart, ironically, is ruled by Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. And what I like to remind folks about that is that patriarchy kind of hijacked Saturn and Capricorn to make them masculine when that is not true. Capricorn's an earth sign, is very feminine. This is a matriarchy. So you want to think of Saturn, too, as the council of elders, the council of wisdom keepers, male and female, the elder system that understands what's good for everybody. Okay, we're going to put you in the right places of what we know your strengths are, and that's going to make the whole thing blossom. So we're looking for that place in our own world to define those terms anew in our Aries department. The extra support in Aries is deep and feminine and powerful, and all these cycles to line up at this time is rare and special. So Sirius is how you nurture and like to be nurtured. In Aries means that freedom and independence is how you feel safe and nurtured. So what do you have to move around to have that, to do that, to be that, right? Venus is finishing up her process, which was retrograde in Aries, direct in Pisces. Now she's back to Aries and moving on. So she's been in council with the sun. She's been in council backstage in what we call an underworld, resetting our value system in our Aries Pisces department. So what has happened in the last 8 years? Last time she moved through there was 2017. What identity and purpose has evolved since then? What do you care about? How have your values shifted? Priorities have shifted. You know, really looking at how you've evolved over that time to lead you to now, to help you contribute to this definition of a new reality going forward. That these 2.5, 3 years that Saturn will spend in Aries, okay, on one hand, it's anchoring the full 30-year cycle, Aries to Pisces, right? But it's also anchoring this first 7-year segment, okay? We say it's a 28-year cycle that moves in 7-year increments. So this 2 years is grounding 7 to 14 to 21 to 28 years, basically. And so we want to do this clean. It's still a brand new beginning. It's a lot of unknown. But knowing who you are and what you want is kind of the key. And defining your terms in a new way is kind of a key based on these new values, which Venus is now coming behind and saying, yes, we all got new values. We all want to do relationships and finances in a new way. So let's renegotiate with those we love and want to keep close. And let's let go of those who have outgrown, the connection. And be okay with all of it. It's all divine order and timing. And I tell folks all the time, if you don't like when people leave your life, I'd really rely on a season and a reason. That one gets me through. But I also say it may not be permanent. If they rise up, they can circle back. at a higher level where you all connect in that frequency again. But sometimes we have to recalibrate our frequency and we lose it with certain people for a little while. If they don't come back, then it really was a season and a reason, and you all good. Either way, it frees up energy for now. And anything moving through Aries wants to talk about now. They don't like thinking about the past or the future. They want to do it and be it now. So there's a lot of impatience out there for all of us. Chiron's finishing up its trek through Aries. I think it's also been there since about 2017 as well. Don't quote me, but it's been there for a while, 7-8 years, and it's almost done and moving into Taurus. This has helped us all heal our identity issues and identify what let's say, turning your wounds into wisdom, right? So how do we flip all the violations that happen? In the Aries department, it's like past lives of war, having to fight for every little thing, having to fight just for your right to be here and exist. That's all on the table again. We want to be so tapped into, A, our spirit team, so our source energy, but B, that identity that is true to you, that is true to your nature. We don't want to make your nature wrong. We want to find the place where your nature shines and is valued. That's the best Aries ever, when you just be in it and people love it, you know? And for that day, for May 24th, we're gathering on May 8th. That day, the moon will be in Taurus, ironically, but right next to everybody. So our emotions, even our internal systems, will be asking about the values and priorities at that point. So that's probably going to be the biggest gauge for you as to what has really, really, really changed. Further along in Taurus, it's in the 4th house of Mercury, Uranus. So we are awakening to some new concept of our own personal value, and our self-worth and self-esteem is going to a whole new level privately, right? 4th house below the horizon, that's all personal. And Jupiter is finishing up in Gemini, about to dip into Cancer in June. So in the 6th house here, we are also calling in for this new reality. I want to say an expansion of choices to broaden our horizons, to expand the vision in some way of what constitutes a network and a community and cohorts, people that you want to play with and work with and learn with and be with and grow with, right? So it's growing. With Jupiter, it's growing in our consciousness. So what do we want to learn before it moves on to some new things? This is the big year of how can you improve your skill set to be more valuable to the team? What have you learned in the last year while Jupiter was there expanding Gemini, right? And here in the 6th house, we're expanding that vision around what's practical for our physical systems again. Like it just keeps coming up over and over. Mars is finishing in Leo, and in this chart is in the 7th house. So we're definitely asking that question of where are we going to feel loved and comfortable in our own skin, and exchanges, whether it's relationships, partnerships, or collaborations, whether it's intimate or otherwise, personal or professional. How do we want to feel in those, and where's the joy and the fun and the light? And the leadership is, again, where are the places you want to lead and where are the places you want to support others in leading? Let's identify some of that as well. And the sacred sisters, Vesta and Juno, are in Scorpio doing the deep dive retrograde there. So we've already been redefining the terms around our relationship with our soul and how we want to come out of this to do intimate partnerships in particular. So as you shift personally, it's going to shift your identity and your professional level, but it's also going to shift your intimate side as well. So let's be mindful of what we're choosing and what we're anchoring and what we're making real through all this. Okay? Let's take a little break before the activations and divinations. Does anyone have questions or comments?
You mentioned Saturn earlier, and Saturn for me, I'm a Libra sun, and my Saturn is actually square my sun. So for me, am I supposed to expect like maybe some tension there, or how can I take that square and benefit from it?
Okay, I got you. Squares are 90-degree angles, so they stabilize things. So the choices and changes we're making are to create more stability. And so we don't want to avoid squares. We don't want to avoid the choices and changes, because then we avoid our growth and we avoid going to that next level. That's one thing. And the other thing is, the way that I also describe this is we're going down the road and we're doing fine, everything's working, and then we hit a dead end and we have to go left or right. We have to make a choice or a change to keep moving. We get stuck with those squares do stop us in our tracks. It's like pause. What do you need to learn? What do you need to understand better to make that choice, to make that change? And so I would look at it that way. And with your sun, that means your Saturn is in one of these signs: Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. It's in one of these if it squares your sun like that. Do you know where your Saturn is?
It's 0 degrees Aquarius.
Oh, so it just moved out of Capricorn. Got it. Okay, so it's an out-of-sign square, but it's still close enough. So it would have been Capricorn a little bit earlier. So, yeah, it's still, you feel it. You feel it on those cusps, where if we do the crossover into any new sign, we do feel it. But the square to your sun is still the light you shine, the energy that you are motivated by, and how you present yourself to the world in certain ways. So that would also feed into that theme of choices and changes, and how to get the most out of the square is to really grow with it and choose change. That's another thing about Saturn for everyone, is if we don't choose it, it's going to be imposed on us, and nobody likes that. So that's why you have to be really clear about your own boundaries and protections and protocols, which reminds me, I should say right here. May 20th is a Tuesday night. I believe it's set for 6 to 9 Eastern. I have my Boundaries Bitch class, where we're going to go deeper into the earth signs and some animals, angels, and ancestors to support us in our boundaries, protections, and protocols that are being rebirthed and are changing. The class itself is just a one-off, and it'll probably turn into a digital download or something I do annually. But I'm very excited, and I've created one for every element, but this is the earth signs to kick it off. And we're going to do fire and individuality. We're going to do water and the ancestors. And air, I'm devoting to Jupiter and Saturn because they're moving through air signs for their 20-year cycle for the next 200 years. So we're really going to get our education in this Aquarian age and a lot of air around our truth and purpose, or our reality and story, the story we're telling here. So those are going to be fun, and I hope you can join me. It's only $150, and Power Circle members get 10% off. So reach out directly if you want to join us for that Tuesday, May 20th. That's perfect for Saturn in this timing. But anyway, our activation with Saturn and Aries that I want to put on your radar are a couple of different things because, like I said, they're preparing us for other things down the road for the rest of the 2020s. So for this year, August 11th is our prayer day, and it'll be Saturn at 1 degree Aries, sextiling Uranus at 1 degree Gemini. So they're both moving into this new territory as fire and air. I look at Aries as the athlete and the part of us that is very proactive, and Gemini as the ideas, possibilities, and options and opportunities. The sextile itself is an opportunity. So this is a good, air and fire work well together. Now we have Saturn and Uranus, the past and the future. We have the, here and now and what's possible. There's a lot going into that rebirth. And then they're going to go on to hit each other. Actually, they've already been in a process of being in Saturn and Pisces to Uranus and Taurus, right? They've already been in this good angle, but it was earth and water. Now shifting air and fire is much different. It's more mental and spiritual. Before it was in our body and soul, it was very deep and very literal in a lot of ways. Now we're moving toward the idea and the concept of the new reality we want to birth. The thing to think about is that we have this ease with Uranus to change. Whatever you want to change, you are supported to change. Okay? So do it, and do it with the support of knowing that whatever you can anchor now will support you in the long term. They are going to dip back in 2026, January 20th, so really early in the year. Saturn will be back to Pisces and Uranus will be back to Taurus for the very last time in their respective cycles at 27 degrees. So that's going to be the next time they hit and the last time they hit in this same angle, right? So we've been building on this energy. Think about it. How have you been feeling basically for the last 7-8 years of wanting to change certain things around your creature comforts and personal security and your hopes and dreams for your soul's purpose for being here? Like, not just your purpose, but your soul's purpose. That has been a lot on the table for all this time. And as it shifts, Aries to Gemini, let's do it. Let's talk about it, and let's do it. Let's do both, right? And then it's going to go on. And the big one that I just want to put on your radar is 2/20, February 20th of 2026, Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 Aries. This is the world point. And this is what I was talking about earlier about them being 1 degree apart in the chart of birthing the reality and the new dream together. So we can do this personally wherever 0 Aries is in our chart, and we can recognize that the social collective is being reborn too between a 30-year cycle and a 165-year cycle. I mean, that's big. And that's probably the one that goes back to the 1800s. That's the 165. So we are looking at, like, as crazy and diabolical and treacherous as the late 1800s were, there was still a lot of birth of new, right? Of crazy radical new. So let's just think about what that might look like for us now. The other long-term process that's going to happen that I think if we do these Saturn activations really well is coming down the pike. Neptune is connecting with Pluto and Uranus, and they're just, all the big boys are interacting. And I think there's probably some posts and articles out there about this, but it's kind of rare where they sync up in these good sextiles, which are opportunities for progress, let's just say. Okay, so again, collectively, we're evolving. In our day-to-day, everyday reality, we're just going to have to deal. Now, I did pull out a little Saturn overview. I should have done this at the top, y'all. But I just want you to know how to kind of work with Saturn. This is part of my Astro 101 class, which will be held later in the fall. But Saturn spends 2.5 years in a sign teaching that lesson in the area of life, which is the house, in this terms, our Aries house. And so where Jupiter brings in your conscious awareness, illuminates infinite possibilities, Saturn brings in the steps and strategies for manifesting those possibilities in physical form so they can serve and support not only you, but others too. So when Saturn in the sky touches Saturn in your chart, it has a light and shadow effect. On one hand, Saturn, the teacher, wants to teach you lessons and test your self-mastery so it can feel very pressure-filled and sometimes limiting and depressing. It wants you to learn that planning and protocols often help productivity, not flying by the seat of your pants, relying on the good luck and kindness of strangers. Saturn is about your long-term success. So what are you building? What do you want to be responsible for in the world? What is your contribution? So while it can be heavy and not the most glamorous aspect of life to deal with, it is the part of life that actually works in real time as it supports and protects you while also serving others. On the other hand, it will reward your hard work and dedication with literal rewards that can be utterly amazing. Saturn will always remind you where you are with your own strengths, boundaries, and personal responsibilities. So if you are all good in those areas, then you are usually rewarded for past labors when Saturn is activating your chart. And if you have been shirking responsibilities, postponing choices, or taking shortcuts or the easy way out in any area of life, then Saturn will likely trip you up in order to slow you down and get your attention. It rules authority in your life, and basically if you can't be the authority in your own life, then Saturn often activates issues with authorities trying to run your life. So it is good to learn to make friends with Saturn for your own good, Ashe. So actually, that's not bad leading into the divinations, y'all, because what you can do is use all that to filter the divinations for yourself personally and what's going to come up here to support us. We love these too. And in this case, I asked 4 questions. I used the Tarot of the Spirit by Pamela Eakins, which is kind of a deep one, but I figure this is a big cycle. We might have to go deep anyway. We pulled a bunch of different kind of Saturn-related things that are going to help us learn from different angles how to navigate, or at least how to initiate this new cycle. So open to receive. The divinations are guidance for everyone. And at the same time, lots of specific things come through when you're listening through your own filter, thinking about all those Saturn things we just talked about and how these things might manifest for you or how you might choose to manifest them a new way. So our 4 questions were, what old reality and purpose is complete? What new reality and purpose is initiating? What is the best use of our introduction, which is right now, May 24th to September 1st? Let's be clear about these couple months because this is where Spirit's going to show you what's rebirthing and where that new beginning is for you. And what is the shadow to beware of? I always ask for a shadow card. So the old reality and purpose that is complete, we got 10 of Fire, the Cage. This, in Pamela Eakins' deck, remember the reason I say it's so deep is because she's a cosmologist and a metaphysician, and she has numerology, astrology, sacred geometry, the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, all combined in this tarot. So if you like deep and you've studied all these different things, mysticism and cosmology like that, you'll love it. For the rest of us, we take it just deeply into our soul level of what is real and true for you. But she associates it on the astrology side with Saturn in Sagittarius, for those of you who might have that. So 10 of fire, and then that's the other thing I say about divinations with tarot anyway, is look them up in your own decks. Like look up your own 10 of fires and see what else you get out of that in terms of guidance for the old reality and purpose that's completing now. You have had an incredible awakening experience. You have been awed, and now you are back down to earth with your feet on the ground and thinking, now what? You are even doubting your experience. You are asking, was that moment of elation real? The 10 of fire expresses the disappointment of one who has traveled on the astral plane or experienced a miraculous conversion or a burst of kundalini energy, chi force, or sexual ecstasy, or even died, and then is forced to return to the mundane experience of daily life. The scenes experienced were so beautiful. The feeling was so welcoming. There were loved ones and guides along the way. You felt like you had gone home. Now you are back in the body. Your heart is burning brightly, but it feels imprisoned. You feel trapped by having to come back. You feel trapped by uncertainties and social responsibilities. Deep breath, very Saturn. How will you deal with the world after you have known the ecstasy of perfect union? That would be Saturn in Pisces. At this time, you need to adjust your perspective. In Myths to Live By, philosopher Joseph Campbell relates the story of the troubled woman who came to India to an Indian saint and said, "Oh, Master, I do not find that I love God." He asked, "Is there nothing that you love?" She answered, "My little nephew." To which he replied, "There is your love and service to God, in your love and service to that child." He provided this woman with a new perspective. The challenge of the 10 of fire is likewise to see things differently. It is time for an attitude change. Yes, like I said, we're moving from water to fire, and this description of having that burning bright, excited, expansive feeling, and then being in the container of reality in the body, it's in all the fire signs. Saturn in Sag, Leo, or Aries, right, would probably feel this way. So moving to a new level is the message of the number 10. Numerologically, 10 is 1 plus 0. 1 is a point of new possibility. This signifies your new beginning, your attitude change or new perspective. 0 is pure unity, the revelation you have already had. Combining 1 and 0 signals movement to a new level. You are now moving quickly. At the point of the 10, the wheel of fortune turns again. To understand your new direction, it is wise to listen to the deepest messages of your heart. At this time, you may need the guidance of a master or teacher. Such a teacher is as close to you as closing your eyes and retreating into stillness. Teachers can be found in classrooms and through the printed word. They reside on the tree of life and in the major arcana of the tarot. Further, all of us are teachers, just as all of us are students. At this time, it is wise to hear the messages of all whom you encounter, friends, family, associates. Listen to the messages on the wind. Open up your heart. Listen and remember. The deepest hearing is the hearing of the heart. On the tree of life, the 10th sphere, which represents the merger of the 3 elements, spirit, emotion, and thought, with a 4th element, matter. This is the realm of the physical body and daily life. She represents the totality of our experience brought down to earth. We do live in a social world. We are of a physical world. And with our very attitudes toward this world, we construct our own cages. Deep breath. We construct our own cages through imagining that our physical bodies and our social responsibilities are a trap. If you feel caged at the 10 of fire, it is well to remember that matter is the manifestation of spirit, the fruit of time and space. And just as the body can be viewed as a trap, it can be viewed as a liberating vehicle, Ashe. The physical body and the physical world provide the tangible form in which spirit does its work on the physical plane. Existing in the physical world, the world of action, gives spirit the tangible opportunity to create. Yes, indeed. The task of the 10 is to tune into the source of your creativity as well as to what you want to create. Use your heart. Love what you do. Use your head. Be clear about what you do. Use your hands for the work of spirit. Through applying to your daily life everything you have learned about moving with rather than against the universal flow, your will, paradoxically, will be freed. Ashe. By accepting and rejoicing in the matter, you are freed from the bondage of matter. You will be freed by the realization that the physical plane constitutes an opportunity and a privilege to be that which embodies spirit in the world of action. It is a tremendous opportunity to become a co-creator with the primal force on the physical plane. Deep breath. So this is the last 7, 14, 21, 28 years, depending on how you're looking at it. But Saturn in Aries has been since 96 to 99. That's the last time it moved through that zone. So we would have had a similar completion and maybe a similar feeling that we had outgrown our confines. And that Aries spark is like, let's go, let's do this next thing, let's get it started. And I've already heard that from a lot of people that are feeling held back by the elbows, which is also very Saturn in Aries. We want to do what we want to do. And there's certain things we got to move through to get there that can slow us down. Delays and detours are totally natural, but it is usually to point out something you need to know in order to succeed. It's not usually to block your good. That's not what Saturn's really trying to do. It's trying to teach you something or show you something. Now, the new reality and purpose that's about to initiate, we got 3 of wind, which is recognition. You are the great decider. You now feel solely responsible for determining the right direction. At the 3 of wind, recognition, you have arrived at a new understanding of the nature of things. You are beginning to understand the cycles that are both internal and external to yourself. Your process of understanding has been rational. Your method of incorporating new information has been scientific. In arriving at a more comprehensive understanding of the universe, you have arrived at a more comprehensive understanding of yourself. Now you are on the verge of establishing a new identity, an identity that is deeper, broader, and truer than what went before. Deep breath. So whether it's Venus's 8-year cycle or Saturn's 30-year cycle, we got some big Aries cycles resetting. At the 3, you have attempted to unravel paradoxes in your life. Your passion to create has been sparked. This is because in symbolic terms, your basic grounding internal elements of fire, which is an active force, and water, which is a stable form, have united and become balanced. This balance was given birth to wind, which represents pure and original thought. The wind carries a message of liberation. To liberate your creativity, you must now throw off the veil of social conditioning. Deep breath. It is time to experience your unique creative prowess, that which has been repressed by the process of your socialization. At the point of the 3, you may feel frustrated, but frustration is a normal part of the creative process. Bouts of anxiety may intermingle with bouts of harmonious joy. Many emotions arise as you grieve for the loss of a parental guidance and protection. You are now on your own. If you succeed on the basis of your own merit. If you fail, you have no one but yourself to blame. Whatever the outcome, your newfound ability to play with a new set of data is pleasing. Okay, deep breath. What I say about the cycles is that cycles repeat throughout our lives over and over and over. But every time one circles back, the sky pattern is different, you're different, the people around you are different. We have an opportunity to respond in new and different ways. So, for example, the big one is 8 years ago when Venus did her retrograde in Aries that Saturn wasn't there. Neptune wasn't there. It was a completely different sky pattern. So this is whatever has been the authority or the guidance and protection that you've been navigating through, it's rebirthing. And you have a whole new set of data to work with, that's for sure. You are sorting out, discarding, and assimilating at will. Through this interplay, you begin to see your new context juxtaposed upon the context of your earlier life. So we're looking at both. In leaving the old neighborhood, the old job, the old house, the old school, the old social class, you recognize that ignorance is bliss. But knowing carries its own bliss, and if you don't let go, you won't grow. In any case, however pleasant the thought, you can never go home again. You are reborn a new person. There is no turning back. You have come too far and you know too much. That's another thing about Saturn and Aries. I mean, you've had the experience and it's shaped your identity and purpose. You are extremely aware at this point of what you are giving up, but less sure of what you are getting. You do know, however, that the past, which you are struggling to leave behind, houses much sorrow. And still, no matter how much sorrow the past contains, there is still sorrow in leaving it. Deep breath, y'all. Your heart feels saddened and angry. You are hurting. You may have hurt others as well. At the 3, you have the first recognition that all that is good has the potential for evil, and all that is evil has the potential for good. You feel responsible. Your heart weighs heavily. New ideas are always dual-edged. Laser beams kill as well as heal. The blade desecrates and in turn prepares ground for planting. In the sword's desecration lies the sorrow of life. In a sense, knowing is like desecration. It calls for destroying the antiquated. One must abandon old views which were useful and comfortable and possibly even sacred. Deep breath. In knowing, one is, in a sense, cast out of the Garden of Eden. Growth seems painful. More knowledge brings more pain. You feel pain and frustration, a sense of being up against the blade, as it were. If you feel miserable at the 3 of Wind, you must work through and understand that the sense of despair is caused by the clash of the old and the new, which is what we were talking about earlier with Saturn and Uranus. In this angle, that's what's coming together, and we're all being catalyzed to change. Old shells must be abandoned. There is no use for that which is too small. Ashe. Concentrate on the new. Concentrate on the positive. The moment of recognition then becomes the path of sanctifying intelligence. Sanctification means to make pure or holy, to free from sin. The question you must ask yourself is my motivation pure? Is my cause holy? When you have determined that it is, you must surrender to the new flow of self in order to complete your transformation so your new thinking can take flight. That is the challenge of the 3 of Wind, to purify your motivation and then surrender to the new process. Your fear is but the initial insecurity of experiencing new identity. This is another thing I say a lot. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It just takes time to get comfortable with it. There is only one way to escape the bondage of the past. You must unlock the door to the next level. In your own hand, you hold the key. It is the key to good and evil. The key is knowledge. This is your power. It is the knowledge that you alone are the great initiator. You alone are the great decider, the great destroyer, the great sanctifier. In this context, you are reborn. Is your motivation pure? Deep breath. So that is what's kicking off the new beginning and this Saturn and Aries cycle. Again, you have to step into it. You have to step up and lead your own life. You don't not necessarily got to lead everybody else, but you definitely lead your own life. Then we have, what is the best use of this introduction, May to September 2025? And we got 7 of Earth, the garden. At the 7, you pause during the growth of an enterprise. It may seem on the surface that certain things have not turned out as planned. There have been apparent setbacks and failures, particularly with regard to the physical body or material matters. However, you must understand that these problems are just bumps in the path or trials on the way as you move ahead. There is no truth in the idea that one can, quote-unquote, regress on one's path. All, quote-unquote, setbacks and failures are for a higher purpose, if only for the purpose of eliminating or changing an idea that has decreased in worth. In every uncomfortable situation, you come closer to realizing your potential. You discover the seeds for new growth. We define ourselves as existing in a particular reality or by changing our focus as able to discern a multitude of realities. At the 7, the garden, the key is in knowing that the way we define our own reality has a self-fulfilling potency. So whatever we claim, however we define our reality as good and strong and healthy and full of life, love, and truth, that's what the reality is going to be. If it's doom and gloom and the end of the world, that's the reality that you're going to embody. So that's the other reason to redefine our terms and get a little more clear with the time you have left. That is to say, if I define myself as too weak, too non-technically oriented, too clean or dressed up to change my flat tire, I will stay where I am until help comes along. If I'm on a country road, I may wait a long while. Perhaps I can use a telephone to call for expert help. There are a number of possibilities. The important thing is how I construct, define, and act in the situation. Every action has a set of consequences. As I create my own reactions through anger, fear, serenity, etc., I create my own definition of self. So again, this is the incubation and the initial step to this new level for you. When I react in the same mode over time, let's say I'm generally angry and tend to spout off at people, others come to identify me as an angry person. Eventually, I internalize that label and come to identify myself as an angry person. If I feel angry and I would rather be calm, I can start acting as if I am calm, even though I might still feel a great deal of anger beneath the surface. Through acting as if I am calm, I will experience a different reaction from other people. Eventually, I will begin to think of myself differently, and over time, through acting as if I'm calm, I will actually become a calm person. And that is real, y'all. And that's the practice of Saturn, of honing your character and shaping things to your nature and working with it until it is solid, until it does support you, which is what we want from Saturn. At the 7, you realize that you create yourself at every step of the way. You do your own prioritizing. No one else can do that for you. You create your own symbolic universe. That is to say, you decide what reality you want to live in. You decide how you will integrate your value system. How does your spirituality fit in? Your emotional life, your intellectual pursuits, physical exercise, work. The trained magician knows that he can wield the wand, which is will, the mirror, which is intuition, the knife, which is reason, and the stone, which is substance, to create his internal world as well as to act on the external world, creating a reality which reflects his own image. The magician recognizes that all social systems are human products. The existence of these systems has its base in the lives of concrete individuals. There are no social systems apart from the perpetrators of such systems. Therefore, such systems are malleable and change as a reflection of the individuals involved therein. So it is with the gods. At the 7 of Earth, you are the magician. The Earth is your garden. In creating the garden, you are aided by the gardening tools, which you have already earned. So that's the thing about Saturn. We got to earn it, whereas Jupiter brings benefits and blessings, sometimes not necessarily earned. That's why they associate it with luck. But you have already earned these gardening tools, which are your wand, the balance and direction in your will. Cup is balance and direction in your intuition and emotions. Blade is balance and direction in your reason. You may now select the seeds in which you will sow your garden. You must plant your gold in a sacred field. Use your valuable resources, your wisdom and understanding, all the tools you hold as the magician to do what is right. What is your gold? And how will you sow it? Deep breath. That's what we should be focused on June, July, August, basically, the end of May to September 1st. So June, July, August, get in touch with what you are creating and manifesting and bringing to life in your garden. And the shadow to beware of, this is basically overall for Saturn and Aries, is 5 of fire, the struggle. At the 5 of fire, you stand on the brink of change between worlds. The feeling is one of impending implosion or explosion, and the spirit in a state of chaos. Any attempt to go back to old imagery or ideas, to regress, retrace steps, or make amends does not work well at this time. Even though there is much disruption on the deepest level, you do not feel remorse. You know that change must occur. The structure is too tight. To release pressure, the lid must blow off. You are in a time of internal struggle. Your energy is heavy and dense. It feels blocked. You can feel fragmented and disrupted. Things you have built seem to be dissolving. Even your own personality is in question. You are asking, who am I and what do I want? This is the beginning of a new eon in thought. But regardless of whether the voice of change comes from within or without, you find yourself persecuting new ideas. This is because you have a strong vested interest in the existing structure. Deep breath. In fact, your whole life's work or savings may have gone into creating and perpetrating it. At this point, however, you are growing. Old structures no longer fit. As you grow and develop, you may find that growth is also occurring at the societal level as well. At the 5 of Fire, a whole culture or society may be suffering an identity crisis. Lawsuits occur. Revolutionaries arise. Wars break out. Prophets speak. Poets publish. But to the individual facing personal change, the battles of the external world may seem like children's skirmishes, while the internal war of self seems deep, bloody, and churning. Inside, you burn like a fire out of control. There is no cooling force of emotional balance to quell the flames. You experience the uncertainty and burning struggle inherent in the human condition. The struggle involves the quest to free the spirit and reconnect with the oneness from which we emerged. The 5 of Fire denotes the fall of spirit to the conditions of quote-unquote man. In our physical world, we seem to work hard at building structures which become the very means by which we are later trapped. Our need then becomes to abandon or destroy such structures. On the Tree of Life, the 5th circle is the one that represents the energy of destruction. This is the process of catabolism, breaking down. In plants and animals, this is the destructive metabolism, whereby living tissue is changed into waste products of a simpler chemical composition. In fire, the 5 implies destruction by burning. Burning away can mean that there is a surge of will, which is not yet connected with a deep understanding. The stabilizing feminine force of emotional attachment has disappeared. Since there is no regulating force, the male, active, energetic force of fire burns out of control. Thus, you may not realize why you seem to be destroying that which was once dear to you. Deep breath. In actuality, you are mercilessly tearing down all that which is obsolete, useless, and outdated, structures which no longer fit. Just as the diseased society is torn asunder, you are burning clean and purifying yourself in order to move to a higher level, Ashe. The struggle is a testing ground of life. Can you surrender to the catabolic process of destruction and still attune to your basic goodness and caring within? While old structures must go, can you realize this outright and work lovingly with those around you so that the struggle will not cause undue damage, Ashe? The challenge of the 5 of Fire is to flow with the process of change. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to lose. In losing all, everything is gained. This is the difference between being in control and being empowered. Deep breath. Allow yourself to go soft and you will win by giving in. This process involves letting go of false hopes and expectations. If you let go, you cannot be disappointed. If you let go of hope, you have nothing to fear. It is only by letting go of hope and fear that you begin to comprehend the vastness of space. This is the first step toward mastery. Deep breath. So basically, we'll know we're in shadow when we're struggling, right? If we're struggling to hold on to the old that's really trying to leave, right? Or struggling to birth the new, which is taking too long to get here or whatever. The struggle is your key that something's out of balance. And then if it is fiery for you personally, that cooling water comes in to soothe that a little bit. But those were really powerful.
Hey there, Kelly.
Hey.
So this Saturn is in my 7th house, and it's Aries.
But it also means a new base, a new foundation for relationships, partnerships, and collaborations. It's good. But it also shows you where the weaknesses are, so it's challenging too.
So how does a Gemini deal with that, especially if the relationship is he's another Gemini?
Oh, goodness.
You know, right?
Well, for you two, I would start with the Jupiter and Gemini that just expanded you both for once in 12 years and ask what story you want to tell and what you're believing to be true or possible, and then use the Aries energy to activate that new level. That's what I would do. I would talk about the last 12-year story and whatever portion of that you all have been together, and how you want to walk into this new 12-year story going forward.
Okay. All right.
And then what are the boundaries and protocols that will make that work? Then discuss the rules and regulations of whatever agreements you're going to have for the new story as well. So what I'm thinking of is like when we slip into the old story and they're like, well, you never do this or you always do that, or, fussing about the past. And it's like, no, we're not doing that no more. We're going to tell this story that we've worked through this, and this, and we found a solution together, and we went to the new level together, and we initiated a whole new purpose together. And that's where you all can start fresh and clean with this Aries energy and living into that new reality. But it's still kind of rooted in your communication and beliefs because of the Gemini and Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yes, it was helpful. Thank you very much.
All right, baby girl. I'm so glad you dropped in. Anyone else? We always say these questions help a lot of people, not just the person that asked it. So feel free. And you can, of course, reach out directly if that's easier for you. And I hope you all will consider joining me in my May 20th class for boundaries and protocols with the earth signs. And I thank you all for being with me live. Join us next time. I think the next thing I'm doing is a Venus circle and maybe yay, full moon, new moon. So reach out directly if you need to. Join us when and where you can. And thank you for being with me. This is Kelly signing off. Be well.